Hey guys, how you doing? This is Paul, and LG sent me their new LG G6 to test out and make some videos about, and I've really been loving this phone so far. Now, before I get any further, I should mention that this is a pre-production review model, so anything I mention in this video, especially some of the software, could easily change before the final model is out, so keep that in mind. So the G6's design is definitely one of the best designs I've ever seen from LG. It's glass and metal all around and feels super solid, and it has a really nice weight to it, and it just feels incredibly premium overall, really like a flagship device. Unfortunately, there is no longer a removable back, so you won't be able to swap out the battery, which is a bit of a disappointment, but that comes as a trade-off for the superior build quality in my opinion. Now, the one thing that everybody has been talking about with the G6 is the display, and that's for a good reason. LG really stepped out of their comfort zone and changed things up with the screen on the G6. So the bezels are super small and the screen takes up almost the entire front of the phone, and you'll also notice it now has rounded corners and it's slightly taller at an 18:9 ratio than the average phone display, which is 16:9. Applications that utilize that extra space look amazing, and I can see it being really useful. So for instance, on the photo app, you can see the pictures you've recently taken at the top of the screen. Now, the one downside is that this does make it so that there are black bars on the left and right side of videos playing in landscape, but it's not really too distracting, and the few videos that will take up the full space look absolutely incredible, like this preview clip that LG built into the phone. So I'll go a lot more in depth with all the little details when I get the full retail unit of the device, but what I wanted to focus today's video on is the cameras on the back of the phone. So yes, it has two cameras on the back, a traditional rear camera with a field of view of 71 degrees with an f1.8 aperture, and a wide-angle camera with a 125-degree field of view, and both are 13 megapixels. And I'm gonna be comparing this side by side to the iPhone 7, which has one of my favorite smartphone cameras I've ever tested. Now, all the photos you're about to see are completely unedited and were shot in fully auto settings on both phones. So with this first picture, we're immediately able to tell some minor color differences between the two cameras. I noticed that the iPhone consistently tends to be a little warmer than the G6, which tends to gravitate towards sort of a bluish green hue in most of its photos. I would say that the iPhone is a bit more color accurate, but the G6 has a more saturated look, which some people might prefer. When we zoom the pictures in, we can also see a pretty big difference in sharpness. The iPhone loses a few of the fine details on the bridge here, while the G6 stays really sharp even when it's cropped in. Exposure between the two was fairly similar, and both did a pretty good job. The G6 may have slightly overexposed a few images, but it was never really severe and it could easily be fixed in post. So on this photo where I focused on the log, you can see that the iPhone really nailed the focus spot on, and it was able to get a nice blurry background with its f1.8 aperture, while the G6 was slightly less blurred. But I also wanted to use this picture to demonstrate the wide angle capability of the G6, which really gives the photo a completely different perspective. You're able to see so much more of the image, and I was really surprised at how well the G6 was able to maintain sharpness even with the wide angle lens. So I have noticed very slight distortion, kind of like a fisheye effect, but it's not super noticeable in landscape shots like this one. But if you take the camera inside, it can get a little bit more noticeable with tight spaces, like in this picture that I took when I was filming B-roll of a product. But really, both cameras produce wonderful photos in my opinion. I might slightly prefer the shots from the iPhone, but really it could go either way. So because both cameras perform so well and so similarly, the software is going to be super important, and LG really excels in this department. They've had their fully manual software since the G4, and it's only improved since then. So you're able to tweak things like exposure, white balance, manual focus, and more. A lot of average users might not be interested in this, but an avid photographer could really take advantage of those extra features to get amazing shots out of the G6. And I'll make sure to go a lot more in depth and test this a lot more in my final review. So these have been my first impressions with the G6. Again, I'm loving it so far, and I can't wait to get my hands on the final unit to bring you guys a lot more in-depth coverage of the phone, so be sure to stay tuned for that. Anyway, if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe for some more content coming soon. Thanks.